Hello, everybody. It's my pleasure and privilege today to interview one of my very best friends, Mr. David F. Coppock. And Mr. Coppock, tell me how you wound up in the field of education.
Well, I was a student at East Tennessee State College. That's been a long time because it's a university now,
Mhm.
But I started out as a business major, and for some reason I just decided to change to education. Might have been because they had the summers off. I'm not sure. That's been a while. But I changed to education. And then after a few quarters, I think I changed back to business and then transferred to UT. And I had enough hours at that time to graduate, but they wasn't all in the right places,
Mhm.
So then I transferred to LMU and did another year, which that's made 5 years. But I got my BS, and I had a double major. I majored in business administration and secondary education. But in the meantime, while I was still going to school, I heard about there's going to be an opening at Big Ridge. Tony Hale was leaving to go to Anderson County, I think. So I got his old position. And of course, Wanda Cox, he was the principal when he left, so they moved Wanda up. And then I took that grade, and it had me teaching 8th grade. And of course, coaching boys and girls basketball. Hardly anybody wanted to do the basketball, but I agreed to it, and that's how it started.
So, how long did you teach?
About 20 years. Of course, now, 3 of those years at Big Ridge, I was principal. But now, when you was principal back in those days of the elementary school, you was a teaching principal. You had the same duties as any other teacher, plus you had the principal's duties on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you also was the lunchroom manager. You had to keep all the books and all for that. And that was a real pain on a fellow. And I think I made $27 a month more than a regular classroom teacher.
Overpaid you, did.
Yeah, they did. So after 3 years of that, I decided I didn't want to be the principal there anymore.
So then where did you go after that?
Well, back to being a classroom teacher there.
Really?
Yeah. And see, at that time, I was still going to UT at night. So you figure all that in. I didn't have much free time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and then you wound up being the principal of Minorville Elementary.
Well, after about 20 years, then, I went to Minorville as the principal after Bill Young.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in 1983-84 school year. Well, the superintendent's position was up for election, and Mr. Burke was not running for re-election. So some of my friends, or I thought they were my friends, encouraged me to run, and I did, and got elected. And that was another fine experience.
And that's when I first met you.
Yes.
First time I ever met you, you were at Bobby Beeler's store.
Yeah.
And you were superintendent. You were the elected superintendent 4 terms.
4 terms.
And then the state changed it to
appointed.
And the last board you had, under which you were elected, voted you a contract.
They did, yes.
And then the next board voted you. They didn't actually vote you out of contract. They just changed your position.
That's right.
I remember that board meeting. That drew a lot of attention.
It did.
And Then you became the supervisor of instruction for a few months.
Yeah.
And Miss Patricia became the interim superintendent.
Yeah.
Director, they called it after it was appointed.
That's right.
And then you wound up being the principal of Sharps Chapel Elementary.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it over there. Of course, now we left out one.
Oh,
After I left that supervisor's position, I was principal again at Minerville
that's right.
Elementary.
You did go back to Minerville
for
Elementary.
one year. And the next 2 years, I was at Sharps Chapel.
And that was your last 2 years before you retired.
I retired. Now, one thing I really liked about being over there was it was a nice little school, as you well know.
Oh, yes.
You've been there, too. And you walk right out there and look down one hall, and you can see everything's going on in the hallway for the whole school.
You could call a faculty meeting in a minute, just knock on everybody's door and motion them out the hall, couldn't you?
And another thing, my little grandson was over there.
Oh, yes.
I believe he was first and second grade those 2 years I was there.
Mm-hmm. And then you retired.
And they gave me a donkey.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about that.
Well, I guess the last day of school, or that half day when we was giving out awards and all that and having the little graduation ceremony, they presented me with a jack.
Yes.
Brought him right in the auditorium or gymnasium. That's one of them combination gyms, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They gave you that so that you could go home and sit on your...
Yes.
But you didn't go home and sit down, did you?
No.
So what have you done since you retired?
Well, I've continued to farm, mostly raising cattle, and of course you got to put up a lot of hay to feed those animals.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to build fences or repair fences and do a lot of bush hogging pasture fields. They'll grow up on you if you let them, some of them especially. And you got to work around the edges of your hay fields. If you're not careful, you'll come out a little bit each year, and there'll be little trees growing, and they keep taking some of your hay fields. So you've got to be sure you edge around the outside of your fields good, and it's good to have a bush hog to help you do that. And what a fellow really needs is one of those sidearm bush hogs like the county's got, and you can go around through there. See all those trees there that's next to the edge, they're wanting to put their limbs out to where they can get more sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you drive under them, they slap you in the face, knock your cap off, and all that. But
didn't have you in mind when they did their trimming, did they?
No.
And you also went back to driving a school bus.
Oh, yes, yeah. Now, when I taught at Big Ridge there for a few years, the morning I'd get on the bus and load up my route, go to the school, and I'd park the bus. And then in the afternoon, when it's time to leave, we'd get back on the bus and go. That's the way Raymond Johnson did it at Minerville Elementary for years.
Mm-hmm.
But I did that. And then when I retired, I went right back to driving a school bus. And I'm still driving one. And you go ahead.
Tell us about how you wound up being on the school board after all those years. Now, you retired what year?
2004.
And you ran for the school board that year, didn't you?
In August, yeah. I got elected like maybe the 3rd or 4th of August.
And you've been on the board ever since?
Ever since, yeah. And, of course, my last day on the payroll was August 31st, of course. Mm-hmm. And then I took office for the school board the very next day, September 1st. That worked out really well.
Mm-hmm. So how many years total did you have in service?
41.
41. And you are probably one of the only people that's ever seen Union County schools from student, because you were a student. Tell us about your younger school days a little bit.
Okay. I started going to Arvale Elementary School when I was 5.5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Now, back at that time, I think if your birthday was like up to January the 1st, if you was going to be 6 by January the 1st, you could start in August, before that. Well, mine was January 2nd, but they didn't get real technical about it. They let me go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So Emmy Turner was the first and second grade teacher at that time. And we just had a good time. She was a good teacher. Of course, I thought she was old, but I don't believe she's near as old as I thought she was, me being a 5-year-old,
It seems even younger now, doesn't she?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. But back in those days, I think they had school buses that hauled the high schoolers, but I didn't have a school bus go by my house for elementary until the 3rd grade. And sometimes my daddy would take me, and other times I would ride what they called it, a work bus. There was a fellow by the name of Till Wyrick that owned his own bus, and there was a lot of people that worked in Knoxville, and he had a route around there in the county, and he picked all those folks up and took them to their jobs. And I don't know what he did during the day till time to pick them up, but anyway, and I'd get on that bus, and we'd go down to Highway 61 and up to what was Caney Stooksbury's store and Bernie George's store. There was 2 of them right there together, and the school was up on the hill behind them. And they'd let me off there, and then in the afternoon, I'd ride it back home. But when the time school turned out like at 3:30, and sometimes that bus didn't come through to pick me up till 4:30 or 5. Now, that's too much time to be wasting. Some of those bigger boys, 7th, 8th graders, they walked home in the afternoon, and a lot of times I'd just walk with them. And that helped quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Get you home quicker. And back then you didn't have to worry about mean people coming through to abduct you or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Them was the good old days, especially in that regard.
Yeah, times were simpler in many ways.
Absolutely.
So, looking back through all the years you spent in Union County education, what do you think was your greatest accomplishment?
I guess is getting that new high school built.
That was quite a task, wasn't it?
It was. I had a hard time with that, even when I'd already bought and paid for the land. I didn't, with my money, I didn't have that much money at that time.
We understand.
But we had enough money till I bought that Monroe farm. Of course, the county owned it. They was going to put a shopping center there.
Mm-hmm.
They thought nobody evidently was interested in the shopping center there, so it sat there a few years, and I went up and talked to Roy Carter about buying it from the county. And they agreed to sell it to us. And then I talked to the Mr. Johnson that owned the farm next door, and we got most of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that way we got plenty of land, but some of it back in the back is not the best. But I think the ag department or some of them have used some of it for some kind of agriculture pursuits. I don't know what exactly, but they have. Mr. Fugit and them have done some things back there. But and there was another thing that in the high school we started that CAD program. You know,
computer assisted drafting.
Yes, and TVA assisted us with that, and then we got one of their employees that they said they recommended him to us that he would know exactly what he was doing, you know, to get the program going. And Woody Manley, he stayed with the program there for, well, I guess until he retired. So it's been a good run, hasn't it?
Sounds like it has been a pretty good run. You've had the opportunity to help a lot of people along the way, too.
Yeah, I always tried to help people if I could at all. And it didn't matter, you know, some people, they'd come to you wanting something and I knew for a fact they didn't vote for me.
Wonder who that might have been.
Oh, I'm not talking about you, Ronnie.
Thank you.
But I helped that lady and got it done, what she needed. And word got back to me that she couldn't believe that I put forth the effort that I did to help her, you know, knowing that she didn't vote for me.
I bet she voted for you the next time.
Well, she may have. But, and I was able to, you know, give jobs to lots of people. We tried to hire all the Union County folks that we had before we went out into Claiborne County or Knox or Anderson or Granger. But now I guess we've got more teachers out of Claiborne County probably than any of the others over the years. But
probably because LMU's up there.
Yes.
Had a better supply from that area, I guess.
And an elected superintendent is in better shape if he has to hire a few outsiders to come in than if he's got more local people wanting jobs than you can give them to them, you know. Because the ones that don't get hired, then they're liable to get mad at you.
So, given the choice between elected and appointed, I would predict you prefer elected.
I always did, yeah. But if you're appointed, you don't have to worry so much about people getting mad at you. But the ones that put you in there, they might have to worry, you know, the board members.
Of course. We know you can't please all the people all the time.
That's right. It doesn't matter what you do. Somebody's going to be mad.
But that's
you just
part of life.
Do the best you can and let the rest of it go.
Looking back, do you have any regrets about anything?
I can't think of anything much. You know.
That's good. That's great.
There's a few things that I always dreaded was going to county commission meetings. There's always somebody there wanting to ask you an embarrassing question if they possibly could, you know.
And county finances were different back then, too. There didn't seem to be as much finance, I don't guess.
Well,
I don't guess we had the tax base back then we have now.
I think my first budget there in 1984 was $3-point-something million. It's less than $4 million. Now, what is it, 25, 6, 7 million?
Somewhere around there.
And, of course, back then you didn't have teachers' aides at all. And then the teaching principals, you had that, and your teacher-pupil ratio was a lot more flexible back then. You know, you could have 40 eighth graders in a class, or 6 or 7, 6, 7, 8 was up to 40.
And even at that, it was hard to. Minerville Elementary was overcrowded for years and years.
They had about 40 in those upper grades when I was principal there in 84, 83, 84 school year. And so now what have they got, 20, 25? And some of your kindergarten classes have what, 12, 15?
Certain places.
and of course, I'd been teaching at Big Ridge for a few years when they started kindergarten classes there. And now we've got, what, 2 classes over there?
Big Ridge?
Yeah. But the enrollment over there is probably not much more than it was a few of the years that I was there. I know it really peaked there at one time. I don't know. Must have been a lot of people moving in here from somewhere else.
Wonder why that would be.
Well, this is such a nice area, you know, good people. Oh, you just can't beat Union County. I don't care what you try.
You've seen technology over the years. When you started in education, there was really no technology at all, was there?
Absolutely.
The telephone was about it, wasn't it?
Yeah, and there was a few years at Big Ridge we didn't even have a telephone. And then the teaching principal's classroom was right next to the little office. And when they did get a telephone, there was no secretary, so either you had to go answer it or send one of your responsible students. You know, once in a while you'll have a few of those that you can trust to answer the phone appropriately, you know. But after I quit being the principal, for reasons we have already discussed, the very next year they got he was still a teaching principal, but you had a secretary in there that could answer the phone. You had a lunchroom manager. They just got all the perks, seemed like.
If you just stuck around a little while, you would have got to enjoy that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and the teaching principal, he got that same big supplement for being over those teachers. That way, he got his $27 a month and didn't have to do all that other stuff.
There you go. You think you being on the board might have helped that along, though, since you've seen what it was like?
We first started out, finally, you know, the bigger schools, you know, especially in Minerville Elementary, they got a supervising principal. And then it took a few more years to get the others in that category. And it's really not fair to the students. If you've got a teaching principal and he's interrupted at all times, you know, either that phone or some salesman coming through that just got to see you right then. And it was a bad situation, really.
So, do you think all the technology has made things better, made them worse, or a mixed blessing?
Well, overall, I'd say it's made it better, but I don't know that it helps kids much about learning any better. I've heard of studies just here recently that if you've got kids in classrooms, I don't know where they'd be, but it might be private schools or something that don't adhere to all this new stuff. But that their students can compete with these that's had the latest technology, and that way, you know, I guess it tells you if you've got children, if they want to learn, they're going to learn no matter what. Because, you know, you take a classroom of kids and you're going to have a few that's going to be really high achievers, and then you've got some right on down, and then until you get down there, you've got a few that they're just there because the law says they have to be.
Mm-hmm. And I think it has to do with the teachers, too.
Oh,
a good teacher can teach with or without practically anything, don't you agree?
That's right. Now, I remember when in 83, 84 is the first year we ever had a computer, I reckon, in the schools. Those big old things, Apple IIs or something.
Apple IIes. They came in through the Title I program, didn't they?
And had those floppy disk things, they called them.
Oh, yeah. We thought we were in high cotton back then, though, didn't we?
Hey, we had two of them at Maryville Elementary. Had them on those roller things, you could take them from one classroom to the other.
Yeah, people would think we were hard up now, but we thought we had it made back then. Remember the old 16mm film strip projectors?
Oh, yes.
Miss Betty used to show us at Minerville Elementary Rapunzel over and over and over again. Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair.
Yeah, we had, who was it? Some animal there, I don't know, whether a frog or something on the riverbank.
He must have, that film must have broke before I got there.
It may have. Sometimes we'd let one play backwards a little bit. The kids got a big kick out of that, where instead of a frog jumping in the water, he was going backwards up onto the land.
Do you remember the old purple mimeograph machines, the Purple Masters? I
do, yeah.
We used to smell those when they'd come hot off the press.
Yeah.
They had such a nice, fresh smell.
And I remember then after that, we had these machines that you'd have your master with all that ink on the back of it, and you put it on there, and then you turn the crank to make copies. And finally, that ink would about get gone, and you'd make copies, and the kids could hardly read it.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the parents would get mad, and if you sent something like that home, expecting them to do some kind of, math problems or whatever.
I've been there, done that myself. Remember it well. And Xerox machines. We called them Xerox machines.
Yeah.
The black copies.
Yeah.
When we first got one of those, after they wouldn't let us use it, we had 250 copies a month, I think. That was generous. That was our limit.
Yeah.
And if you made more than that, you had to pay for them.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't a big fan of all this copying stuff. I thought they was wasting an awful lot of paper.
Mm.
We had a big old chalkboard on the wall in there. And if I was given a test or something in math, I just put them on the chalkboard. Or if it's a written test in some other subject, you do the same thing. They get them out a sheet of paper and do that, and you've saved a little money. Well, it saved it for the county anyway. The county's paying for that paper. Parents is, I guess it really works out about the same, though.
Mm-hmm.
Parents are paying for it no matter what, either taxes or out of their own pocket for their kids. But
what is those saying? There's no such thing as a free lunch.
Somebody pays for it.
Chalkboards have about disappeared, haven't they?
They have, yeah.
Very few of them left. Well, surely you've got a good joke to tell us. You've always got a good joke.
Well, I could tell you about this couple that was up in Kentucky, up around Corbin, I think, and they were wanting to come to Maynardville, Tennessee, for some reason. And so they didn't know exactly where it was, but they was coming down I-75 through Jellicoe, and they got off down here at the Norris Clinton exit and headed back up toward Andersonville and all.
Mm-hmm.
They was doing fine. They just didn't know exactly, but they got on up there, what we call Blue Mud, right before you get to Big Ridge Park, and they turned up that road, Central View Road, and then they got over onto Albright Road. They was getting back in back in the old days would have been kind of like the boonies or something.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, They saw this old farmer up on the bank working in his garden, and they decided to stop and ask directions. So the feller from Kentucky got out of his vehicle and he hollered to the old farmer and he said, "How do you get to Maynardville?" And the old farmer said, "Most of the time my son-in-law takes me."
That wouldn't be a true story close to home, would it?
No, just a story.
Thank you for being willing to be interviewed. And what we want to do is to interview the people that have helped shape Union County and make it what it is, and to show the positive sides of Union County, that it is really a good place to live. It is. It's a pleasure having you and pleasure knowing you, my friend.